True or false? True or false? Aid. This week, Donald Trump said that no one knows what magnets are.
Ooh. False, but not because I think it's outside of the realms of possibility. Literally based on the fact I haven't read that story. I haven't heard that. But I think he is stupid enough to say that.
It would have come out in the wash of the news if he had. Okay, Liz?
Oh my goodness. Is it true or false? Oh, I'll say that it's true. I'll say it's true just because I want to believe that he's even more stupid than I think he is.
Do you know what? With stories like this, or like true or falses like this, I feel like it's actually just a matter of time. Like, he will say it. If you leave him in a room with a journalist for long enough, with the cameras, eventually he will say it. It's like the monkeys with the typewriters.
I'll give the answer in a minute. I've often like the, where they go into the crowd and they interview people about stuff and they give them like really basic questions and they struggle. I would love to have seen someone actually do that with him because he did the cognitive test. So there was one guy who was like, what's 3 divided by 3?
Yeah.
9. And he was like, how did you come to that answer? He's like, well, there are 3 and there's 3, so you need 3 3s, so that makes like,
yeah.
But Trump would do the same.
Yeah, he'd blame like numeracy or like maths on the Democrats. He'd say it was left wing or a conspiracy or something. Numbers are woke.
And the military in to take out the mathematicians.
Yeah.
I'm right, you're all wrong. It's true. He said it this week.
Okay.
You're gonna see a theme through all of this.
Yeah.
This week, did Donald Trump, and this goes to Liz, slag off American workers saying they weren't talented enough? He needed to bring in immigrants on a special visa.
No, I can't believe he said that. Has he said that? Oh my God, that's a massive U-turn if he said that. He's thrown his workers in the bin, you're telling me. No, I don't believe. I'm saying it's false.
I'm saying it's false. Aid?
I'm going to say it's true on the basis that he's taken in a lot of donor money from big tech, and big tech needs lots of immigrants. So, yeah, I'm going to say true.
It is true. He actually slagged off American workers saying they weren't.
Wow. He's also opened up big imports for Brazilian beef imports as well. So he's really pissed off the American farmers, even more than they were pissed off before.
Oh, really? Because I thought you put on tariffs because the Brazilians were taking Bolsonaro to court. I think he lost it.
He's opened the door to it and he's just said, that's it. Beef's too expensive here, so we're going to import it. That's gone down like a cup of hot sick. So I think, he's in a desperate place. He's trying to outdo Boris Johnson's premiership, isn't he? I think.
He's definitely outdone Liz Truss.
Well,
Aid.
Mm-hmm.
This week, Donald Trump said that he didn't understand why other countries were celebrating VE Day because the Americans won the war.
That is true. As in, it's true that he said that, rather than.
Yeah, it's true. I've read this. Yes, yeah, it's not true what he said. It is true that he said this. Because actually, really, if you look at it from a historical point of view, I think the Russians probably have a stronger claim than him.
I think, to be fair, if either Britain, Russia, or America had been knocked out, I don't think anyone would have won, apart from Germany. The Russians couldn't win without the American trucks and industrial complex. The Brits were needed to land on D-Day, and the Americans couldn't have gotten really involved otherwise. That would have been too long a trek. They'd have to island hop from Greenland to Ireland to Britain to Europe, which would have been I don't know if that would have been achievable.
And also just think, where would Hollywood be without Winston Churchill?
Oh, you're
All
going to have to
those
explain
movies.
that one. That sounds like a riddle.
All the movies that they, you know, the amazing movies
Yes. Okay.
that they made, the post-war period, which really created people like Mark Francois.
You mean Peter Griffin?
Is it
No.
true? Is it true? Like maybe you two could, because I've read this, I've heard this before, but I've never heard it verified by people with such credibility and integrity as I'm now blessed with sharing a podcast with. Is it true? Is there any truth to the fact that America were not going to step in and save your asses in the Second World War? It was actually that they had loaned us a significant amount of money, and they knew that if Nazi Germany took over Europe, they would never see that money back. Is there truth to that?
So the Americans only got involved because Hitler declared war on America, and that was because I think his admirals had said, if you allow us to do it, we could knock out the American fleet, which we've not been able to do because we couldn't go in American waters. And so America was like sort of on two sides being attacked and wouldn't be able to cope. But they hadn't got a clue about the American industrial complex and how big it could grow. And it didn't rely on imports, essentially. So, yes, America only went in because Hitler declared war.
Okay. But it wasn't singularly rooted in a desire to like recoup their loan from the UK. No. Okay.
But they did. I think we only paid it off.
Yeah.
Brown, we paid off World War One.
Yeah.
I think we're still paying back World War Two. It's just nuts. But it is what it is. Okay, last question, Liz. Errol Musk has had 2 kids with his stepdaughter. True or false?
Oh, I can't believe you're asking me this question. Oh.
You missed out the third option as well. True, false, or saucy?
Unpalatable. Oh.
True, false, or vomit?
Oh my God, he is the most horrible man. I can't answer it, Al. You've given me something which is unanswerable. Oh.
I think that's when you know.
He did or did not do that. You're gonna have to give an answer.
Oh. I'm gonna have to say false because he should be in jail if it's true.
Aid?
Let me just preface my answer to it by saying his son, Elon, has suggested that he's guilty of doing basically every despicable crime you can imagine. And I really think it sort of speaks to somebody's character when you can kind of look at yourself in the mirror and go like, actually, probably the least worst thing that he's done is like have 2 kids with his step. Like, that was a good day for Errol Musk. That was like, he, you know, like what if he's murdered people? What if he's like molested every kid on the street? Like maybe Elon is sort of ish alluding to. Please don't sue me, Musks.
Fuck him.
But yeah, no, I think it's true.
Oh.
You think it's true?
I think it's true.
150th episode and the guest has won, Liz. It is true. He's had 2 kids.
From his stepdaughter. Oh.
Yeah.
Who he met at the age of 4.
Oh my God, that is just horrific.
Yeah.
As I tweeted at him this week when he was going on about von der Leyen's not being voted in by the people, I was like, well, who voted in Elon Musk to actually rule on the world? Nobody.
It's nuts. Shall we get into it? Welcome everyone to the Sunday Roast. It's the 150th episode. You voted. We got Liz.
Hello, lovely voters, and I'm so honoured to be here on the 150th episode and to be here to entertain you. Hopefully, I live up to your expectations.
And my wonderful guest, Aid.
I'm Aid. I'm a host of the Far Right Watch videos. I do a podcast, and I'm Alex's friend, and it's a pleasure to be here once more.
Thank you.
But you're my friend too.
Yes, of course. A friend of the show, friend of its alumni.
Friend of the lamp.
I was feeling left out then for a minute.
Yeah.
I was feeling leaving out of the love.
Let's kick off Donald Trump. Totally insane week. Epstein files, mad comments. I didn't know about the Brazilian bringing in the meat thing. So he's put on tariffs on Brazil because he didn't like the fact that they were holding a president to an account for an attempted coup, which was arguably a milder coup than the one that Donald Trump led. And there was the BBC this week. Hey, do you want to break down your perspective on all of this insanity?
On the BBC stuff. I mean, look, there's been a lot of people who would have spoken about this kind of angle to it in a more eloquent and articulate fashion than I am now able to. But the thing that I was struck by this week was the flag waving Patriot Brigade, who in any other week would be singing the praises, the strengths, the successes of Great Britain until they were blue in the face, or red, white, and blue in the face. But this week, within these parameters, they're happy to cheer on the demise of the British Broadcasting Corporation. It's absolute, like, it's such an institution. It's such a world. Like, I remember traveling in Australia, driving up the Gold Coast, and there were kids of a similar age to us there. I must have been like 21, 22. And they knew everything about the BBC. It's like a worldwide phenomenon that sometimes when you grow up and live in the UK, you think, oh, that's just our broadcaster. But no, it is like a famous historical institution with traditions and successes behind it that we should all really be cheering on. It just seems to be this bizarrely like patriotic fifth gear Britain is best lot who are paradoxically keen to see it get sued into oblivion by an unelected like foreign leader. It's the same people who are like sovereignty, please, like we can't have the EU controlling our laws and way of life and stuff. The same lot now who are begging for like Donald Trump to buy England or sue the BBC into oblivion. It's ridiculous.
It's wild, isn't it? I guess it's because they want everything to be privatized. And I'd even go further and go, I think they want everything to be privatized so they don't actually have any work when in government. I think they're actually all really just pure lazy yuppies. That's my like posh hippies who don't want to do the work.
Yeah, like anything to do with like publicly funded 3-letter institutions, they have a real problem with. They don't want our tax money, not that half of them even pay taxes, but they don't want tax money going towards something that is not enslaving to the same commercial pressures as their pet project. So that's why you get Murdoch really going in on the BBC. That's why you get people who are part-time presenters taking checks from GB News really going in on the BBC.
I think we're going to have to think about healthcare very, very differently. And I think we're going to have to move to an insurance-based system of healthcare. Frankly, I would feel more comfortable that my money would return value if I was able to do that through the marketplace of an insurance company than just us trustingly giving 100 billion a year to central government and expecting them to organise the healthcare service from cradle to grave.
The little news clip with a representative of the Trump administration talking to a guy from GB News, and it was so obvious that he was like pushing. He was trying to get like an American accent guy in a nice suit to say Trump thinks GB News is the best. Like he was like, so have you heard the president say that he loves GB News? And like this guy, to be fair, was sort of going, well, I haven't really heard him say that exact thing. But yes, the president is looking at it like, well, but has he mentioned GB News? I mean, it seemed like on X the other day that he really loved GB News. Have you got anything to say about this? Like, it's so fucking needy. Oh, it winds me up.
Yes, fuck. You wouldn't want to date anyone like that, would you?
Probably
Please,
not.
you tell me how great I am, or how great my house is,
Feed me
or great my car is, or great my job is. You just run a mile. You're like, I'm not dating you. Fuck off, you needy wanker.
Yeah,
Liz, I could see you. Go on.
Look, I've had rows with them on Twitter as they go, oh, she's part of the establishment. She's backing the BBC. I'm going, no, I'm backing fucking tens of thousands of jobs and the massive black hole that getting rid of the BBC will do to the economy, and also what it does to our soft power internationally. I am the bloody patriot, and you are the stupid stooge who actually just believes in all of these feelings that are fed to you via the right-wing press that make you feel as if you're really hard when actually you're just stupid. It's as simple as that.
I mean, and just to expand on that point, there's like, I mean, the BBC, like we live obviously in a very divided time. Everybody goes to their platforms or their broadcasters for their news in a way that resonates with them. The BBC, rightly or like, I have issues with some of the shows and some of the presenters that are on there, right? Your Koonsbergs, your Question Times. But then equally, there's other more left-leaning output. Newsnight, historically, I guess on a good week, Panorama. But broadly speaking, the fact that they get into trouble with the left for having a Koonsberg or with the right for having a Newsnight kind of tells you that, broadly speaking, they float somewhere in the middle and they are respected internationally on that basis. If you remove the BBC, which serves as that sort of conduit between the left and the right, like when we all get a bit too frenzied and a bit too tribal, we all know, left or right, we can still go to the Beeb, and so can other people in other countries, and get something resembling the truth. Now, if it gets sued into oblivion, even if we put the patriotism stuff up on the shelf for a minute, if you remove that sort of centrist, center-left, center-right, quote, sensible, for want of a better word, journalism, then we really are in trouble, because then we're in a situation where all of your frenzied, frog-boiled right-wingers will just go to GB News or Talk TV, and all of your left-wing socialist, your party, like, we will all just migrate over to The Guardian, The Mirror, help me out here. What's the name of the, like, Politics Joe?
Yep, Novara
Media.
Is it Novara?
And there will be no meeting point in the middle. Sorry, you were saying?
Is it Novara or Novara? I can never remember.
I thought it was Novara.
Novara. We'll say Novara. We'll go with that.
Yep.
But yeah, you're right.
It's what Murdoch's always wanted. He wants to just literally privatise everything, particularly get rid of the BBC, which has encroached on his complete domination of the British psyche, and not only go further than that. And it's been going on really since Leveson. I think it's accelerated. We had a moment where we could have actually cracked the problem with the right-wing domination of this country in the media. And Cameron, who was responsible for cancelling Leveson too? That is the moment that it all fell apart. And that is the moment that Murdoch harnessed Brexit. And Brexit really, really screwed the BBC, because they actually ended up having to do the post-truth rubbish of trying to justify the British supposed decision that economically that Project Fear was definitely, silly, and that it was right to do Brexit. And that is where it all started to go wrong. And that's when Laura Koonsberg started to rise up. And I used to always watch Andrew Marr on a Sunday, nearly every week. And it's got to a point now that I cannot watch that Sunday programme, because I feel like I just feel like going and banging my head against the wall, because I can't listen to her. But equally, I'm not as big a BBC fan as I used to be, because I'm not feeling that it is doing what it should be doing, which is really trying to be as truthful as possible. But this whole thing of the right wing telling the BBC that they've got to be unbiased and impartial it's just stupid, because it's impossible to get somebody who is unbiased. It's even impossible to make AI bloody unbiased. So how can you get a media establishment to be unbiased? And so that standard is there, and it's setting it up to fail. There has to be some form of realism here.
I quite like the counter approach. Like that Andrew Neil, Ben Shapiro thing was just beautiful for illustrating that. Andrew Neil destroyed Shapiro, and Shapiro thought he was some left-winger. And that was the beauty of it. I quite like that. And I also quite like the fact that it seems to piss off the left and the right when it comes to news, or at least like investigative journalism, or when they're hosting people and it's a sort of news outlet program where they're trying to get to the bottom or the crux of an issue, and they take opposite sides. I think that's actually really important for that institution. And the reason I bring that up is because I feel that the left are pissed off with the BBC, and I feel the right are pissed off with the BBC. I'm going, actually, maybe because of that, and I'm not saying the BBC is perfect, because of that, maybe they've actually hit the right point. Maybe they have done that. And maybe there are other issues involved which people are sort of bringing up and hiding behind by just saying, oh, it's shit because it's left. Oh, it's shit because it's right. I think that's a really important nuance, because when I looked at that, and I'll illustrate it with that edit.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and I'll be there with you, and we fight we fight like hell. And if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore.
I looked at the edit. Essentially, and I'm an editor, they missed a transition, is what we'd call it, to make it clear that what he said was a separate point. That's it, which is a quick 2-second thing that someone's missed. But the bigger thing, and I really hope Trump does try and sue the BBC over this, the bigger thing was the fact that he still went and told a crowd of people to go down to Congress and disrupt a democratic process that was taking place, and was blaming the vice president, his vice president, for causing this and was responsible for this, which enraged the crowd with a conspiracy theory that only he has said. And the reason we can prove it's a conspiracy theory is because right now Fox has given out about 800 million to, I think it was Dominion.
Yeah.
And Systematic are suing Fox for 2.7, which I think would make it the biggest payout in US history. If they had evidence, they would go to court. They haven't, and they issued an apology with the first one, which I think is Dominion. They issued an apology for providing false news. I want Trump to go to court in the UK. I think he would be fucked if he did that. Because I think, imagine trying to convince a jury after they show the full transcript that he didn't encourage a crowd to go and march on Congress and disrupt the democratic process.
Yeah. And just to sort of track this back from what you were saying. So the fact that we know, and it is a fact, that the election rigging or stolen election stuff was baseless, means that what he was saying that day and the pressure that he was applying on his vice president to not sign over the presidency to Joe Biden was unfounded. And when you marry that with all of the other talk that he was doing, that he was actually doing, forget like the badly edited stuff for a minute, the stuff that he has actually said and all of the behavior that came after it with people tearing into those buildings kind of tells you he's not innocent. He doesn't really have a case for this. And so in a very similar way as we saw this week, I don't know if you guys saw this, there was footage of a Washington, D.C. courtroom, and it was a judge asking like the Trump administration's lawyer he said, like, who pays for the tariffs? And this lawyer just had to, because it's in a courtroom, right? It's not a Fox News interview. It's not a campaign podium thing. You have to tell the truth. If you get caught out like lying to the judge or whoever in a courtroom and you're a lawyer, you're in a lot of trouble. So when he was asked this, the representative of the Trump admin was like, they were like, who pays for the tariffs? And this guy was like, the American people do, sir. So yeah, I'd like to see this end up in a courtroom. Absolutely. I like the fact that the Beeb have apologized to him. I like the fact that they have no appetite to pay him £1 billion or whatever. Yeah.
Well, look, it's a nonsense because he won the election. And who in America, I mean, I know we say the BBC has got, international acclaim, but let's be frank, who was watching the BBC report who had a vote in America? Who did that report influence in that election? That is really the legal principle of what he's trying to argue. But actually, the truth of the matter is that Donald Trump is incredibly thin-skinned, probably because of his small hands. And he's basically got narcissistic injury, and so he's lashing out and showing his size. But from a British point of view, I cannot understand they were furious, the Brexiteers, that what's his name, the previous American president, I can't remember his name.
Biden.
No, before
Obama?
Obama. When Obama supposedly interfered in our Brexit election, they were furious with that. And yet they're rejoicing, Donald Trump coming here and suing the arse off the BBC, which has a massive impact on our economy.
Yeah.
You just couldn't make it up. There is no joined up thinking here, and there is no sense of patriotism. Already, we've done Brexit, which has blown a huge black hole in our economy and diminished our standing in the world. And they're like, yeah, let's get rid of the BBC next as well. So we can worship Trump. Well, why don't you just go and move to America if you feel like that?
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to move on too quickly from this because I think there's a few other points. But another Brexiteer this week is who pumped £1 million into the Brexit campaign. He's gone, yeah, I'm fucking off to Australia.
Yeah.
How infuriating is this? Yes. How many of the Brexit donors have buggered off and left Brexit Britain to crumble? I think it's probably nearly all of them now.
I
It's
saw
interesting
an
though, isn't it?
amazing tweet where it was like Nigel Farage went for German passports, Dyson pissed off to Singapore.
Yeah.
Um,
The other one went to the energy guy, went to Monaco.
who was that? I can't think. I think John Cleese complained. It was a Brexiteer, wasn't he? And he pissed off to America.
He's had a bit of a Damascene change actually. John Cleese. He seems to
Yes.
he seems to have had a bit of a reality check.
And then Mogg put his company into Ireland.
Yeah.
You're going, you're a bunch of assholes.
John Redwood told his advisors to ditch all their UK assets as well. You just couldn't make it up. You just couldn't make it up.
And yet here we are. And then they're going for more. They want the ECHR to go next.
Yeah. But that's a sort of like, I mean, we can see through all of this stuff, right? Like, so from a, I don't want to sound all snooty about this, but from a bog standard Sun reader's perspective, they would say, oh yeah, we should vote Brexit because we will flourish outside of the European Union with free trade, etc. I feel like people who cut through the headlines, the slogans, and engage with the nuance and objective reality, I feel like we look at it like, no, this is disaster capitalism. Like this is chapter one of like oligarchy. So they will tank the pound, they'll crash the value of these institutions, public utilities, and then they will have moved their money offshore. And then when the value of it here domestically has tanked, they step back in and then buy up like 2, 3, 4 times the amount.
Yeah.
And that's what we're seeing with people like Mogg. Like they transfer their business over to Ireland, they move their money over into euros. They buy shares, like they liquidate their shares in the UK and then buy up shares elsewhere. And then when everything has collapsed over here, they will buy up like a whole street's worth of houses or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, that's already happened, Gage. This week it was announced that Lloyd's Bank have bought up a whole load of housing stock to be the new revenue for them as kind of instead of council houses, they're owned by banks.
Same thing as BlackRock over in the US. BlackRock and Goldman's have bought up domestic properties because why would you not? Like if you were an investor, if you were a senior manager at Goldman's or BlackRock, you would look at the housing market and go, okay, look, they're not building enough houses. This is something that's going to go further and further out of reach for the average person, but they are going to need to rent. And who doesn't love a subscription? That'll be the next 10 years, 20 years. It's like you used to buy a house and it was your house. And after 20 years of a mortgage, you would own it outright and then you could enjoy your retirement. Now we live in a world, and soon we will live in a world where it's this to an exaggerated degree, where everything is like a monthly payment just for you to exist. It will be like a 1-bed flat and you have to pay for it like through the nose every month. It'll be 3/4 of your income. Basically, yeah. I mean, look, this week, not to sort of stay on the Trump stuff for too long, but this week Trump was hyping up the idea of 50-year mortgages over there. And I'm like, that will happen here too. They will start talking about extending the term, and you will end up in a situation where home ownership is a glorified rent. You'll never pay that debt off. They'll make it legal that you can bequeath the mortgage and the debt to your kids. And maybe in 2 or 3 generations, if inheritance tax doesn't rob you of the amount that you paid off already, like maybe one of your ancestors will end up actually being a homeowner.
At what stage is there going to be a revolution when you've got Elon Musk supposedly facing the £1 trillion wealth? At what stage do the masses wake up, sort of think, I've got nothing. In fact, I've got less than nothing. I've only got debt. And this guy has hoovered everything up, him and his and a few of his friends. At what point do people wake up to that reality? Well, surely they have to, or is it because they're so distracted by technology that that will never happen?
What you're missing out? So Elon Musk, yes. Mark Zuckerberg, yes. you know, the guys at Google, yes, look, they do have an awful lot of money and inequality is really striking. But what you're missing out there, I suspect deliberately, Liz, is the boats. What about the boat people?
Yes, all the foreigners coming over here.
But it's always the poorest because they
Yeah.
they were already doing. When Nigel Farage said the other week he thought the minimum wage at £10 an hour was too much.
Yeah.
And you're going, you wouldn't do that job. Tice wouldn't do that job for £10 an hour. Zia Youssef wouldn't do that job for £10 an hour. None of your party would do that job for £10 an hour, or any job for £10.
But he's having to face fiscal reality, and that's why he's also throwing most of his voters under the bus by getting rid of the triple lock on the pensioners. If you look at a room of reform voters when he's doing his, showing off with his style that he does, they're mostly pensioners, and there's been hardly anything in the press about the fact that he's going, actually, we're not going to guarantee the triple lock. And I'm like, oh my God, this is Theresa May's dementia tax moment. Yep. They're all going to go, bah, and vote Green.
I don't know. I think they're stuck. It's funny because no one's really talked about this. They're stuck at that 30% rate, aren't they? They can't punch. They can't punch into that 40. They might sort of hover around and it'll drop up and down a bit. But they're stuck at 30%. And everyone keeps saying, they, at least on their social media, keep saying, we're the biggest party. It's like 70% don't want you. Yeah. How are you saying that? That's the biggest story here. When you're saying 30, 33, I'm going 70 don't want you. That's the majority. So why are you trying to...
This is the problem he had with UKIP. He hasn't actually done... The only difference is that he managed to get elected as an MP, but otherwise it is the same as UKIP, despite the fact that God knows how much money has been invested in their party. I mean, we don't know because there's a lot of, skullduggery going on with that. But he has got the most money, I can't understand why anybody thinks that Nigel Farage is the answer to our problems. It just defies belief. If Nigel Farage hadn't been on the scene, and, there's lots of things that could have happened in his life that would have, that sliding doors moment, I'm not going to refer to it, but if he hadn't survived into the political foray, then where would Britain be? We'd be a bloody lot downside off, better. I mean, sorry, my words are going wrong, but get so excited at the thought of my life without Nigel Farage.
Bear in mind, the economic damage of Brexit is worse than Liz Truss.
Yeah.
And no one is ever going to have Liz Truss back in as Prime Minister. But there's 30% of the population that are going, we want Liz Truss Mark II. They want more of it. It's not like, go on.
I was just going to say, this is what bewilders me about, and maybe it goes back to the, not subscribing to the headlines and the slogans kind of stuff. But when you actually get into the weeds of reform policy, I'm always left with the same question of where are the solutions? Do you have any actual solutions to the problems that we face, which are just off the top of my head, right? We have an aging population. We don't have enough babies. We don't have enough young people. That means we don't have enough tax. How are you going to pay for the old people who need more social care, more NHS treatment for a longer period of their lives than we have ever had to deal with before? So you're looking at you're looking at immigration. You need growth. You're not going to have growth outside of the single market. We need to look at automation, at AI. What impact is that going to have on jobs going forward? How are we going to transition safely off of fossil fuels? Everybody bangs on within the reform quarters and corridors about, we should go in for the North Sea oil. That's our oil. That's, we could have energy security. No. They would all be sold on the global markets to the highest bidder. So if we're talking about sustainability, jobs, broaching the subject of the aging population, that's before we even get onto the national debt. Pulling the national debt down so you could actually give anybody a tax cut. When you get into the weeds of reforms, manifestos, and pledges, their contracts with the people, what you actually arrive at is policies that are not dissimilar to Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng. It's stuff like, until very recently, £90 billion worth of tax cuts and unfunded.
That Nigel stood up. What was extraordinary was, when was the last time you heard a political leader in this country with a real shot at Downing Street, calling for 300 to 400 billion pounds of cuts in their first term of government?
Under my plans, we would start paying down the debt in 3 years' time. So I'm not putting it on the never, never. I would start paying it down in
Liz,
3 years.
Liz, that's simply not right. You promised almost £40 billion of unfunded tax cuts, £40 billion more borrowing. That is the country's credit card. It's our children and grandchildren. Everyone here has kids. We're going to have to pick up the tab for that.
Rishi, that is not true.
There's nothing conservative about it.
Or we're going to stop paying interest on QE loans.
It is the Murdochism of which we had with I remember it coming with the Falklands War. I'm older than you. I remember sitting there going, "What the heck is this?" Suddenly, it all became about the empire. I remember the 70s when we were absolutely on our arse, and then suddenly it was like, "Whoa, we've still got some empire. There's these islands over there that really need defending." And this thing came up, and I was like, "What on earth is this?" And it was completely alien to me. And then we had the same thing with Iraq War. I sat there and I go, "We've got to go and get Saddam." I was going, no, we don't. No, that's stupid.
Yeah.
And this same thing is about feelings. They know you've got to give it to Murdoch, the absolute brilliance of it. And I used to work in Saatchi's when the Sun were clients they weren't my clients, they were in another department, but I used to see the papers every day, and you'd see it, and we were part of that messaging in many ways, and we were riding a wave of it, and I kind of see what they're up to. And even when I sit with my friends who've been lost to the dark side of believing that they've got to go and get Saddam and do all of the rest of it, and BBC's rubbish, and it just defies belief. I sit there and I explain to them that, and it is like they've been hypnotized. That's the only thing I can put any sense to it. Is I go, no, they're just trying to con you. They're just trying to get you to feel good about it. So you just think, I'll go. And you can sit there with Nigel Farage and you can say he's done this and this and this and this. He promised that we were going to save money with Brexit that could go to the NHS. Then he said he didn't promise it. Then he said, oh, but we'll have a featherbed to spend loads of money with Brexit. And now he turns around and he's got the audacity to say, yeah, the Brexit hasn't worked well because I wasn't at the helm. I mean, who can be so naive to believe this? And what it is that they want to believe that there's some messiah out there. It is total Monty Python madness.
It's also Adolf Hitler, Mussolini, they're the messiah. That's what they called him. Yeah. Like Hitler was called an angel. He was the messiah. They created an entire myth around him that he was going to be the savior of Germany. Mussolini wasn't much different. Franco created the same thing. It's all the same playbook. I don't see, like, when we look at the modern era and all the social media stuff that's coming out at the moment for advertising, I don't see too much of a difference with this manufactured fear that they're creating and pumping out across social media to what they were doing in the 30s, because it was the same thing. Make everyone scared, vote for us, don't think about what we're actually saying, and we'll bring you we'll solve the solution, that will solve the problem. I think the interesting thing with Hitler was the fact that he could cancel the Versailles Treaty, and he then had a huge amount of money, which he then put into infrastructure. No one's talking about that. And there is no fucking money going to Versailles. There is no huge lump of cash sat there waiting to be cancelled. I mean, saying all of that, the biggest irony was the Express complaining about us paying into the EU still, which includes us paying into the EU to pay Nigel Farage's pension, which no one fucking talks about. And I agree. Housing as well. I think they need to sort. I heard a wild stat. America's 4 million houses short. That's how many more houses they need to build across the whole of the United States to catch up, because there's a shortage. We're the same. We're 4 million short, and we're the UK. We fit in the state of Oregon. We've got a massive house, and no one's dealing with it. But that's the only way you can bring down rent and mortgages. You have to bring in a supply, and we won't do that because it's what you were saying, Aid. We've turned them into assets. That's why the banks are buying them. They're not homes anymore. They're not considered, this is my private property. It's an asset, and therefore I'm going to make money out of it. So it doesn't benefit those, especially people with huge housing portfolios, to push for more houses to be built, because it will reduce the value of their stock.
And
well, years ago, they made it really, really hard for any small builder to build. They made it more expensive to get and more difficult to get planning permission. So we're at a stage now that only the big house builders can get planning permission. And even they have to throw a lot at it, but they've got enough to throw at it. And really, the solution to the housing crisis was always based in encouraging farmers, who own more land than most people, to maybe set aside 5 or 10% of their farm and give them planning permission to build some houses in all of the villages. And then you don't have these huge housing developments causing sewage problems, power grid problems, infrastructure problems. If every village in the country added 10 to 20 houses, then we wouldn't be in a housing crisis. But they have not allowed that to happen. And this government have decided to try and blow the doors off it with this ridiculous planning bill, which is all based on their growth plan, which is going to rub up against, and it is rubbing up against, our trade agreement with the EU and the Windsor Framework, because it violates those agreements, those treaties. And it's sort of like, what part of this, of the Labour Party or the Labour government, because they're not united, what part of this are they not seeing? You try and want change, and you think that change is going to come by blowing the doors off our agreement with Europe, which we rely on for power and food and basic essentials.
And yet, I mean, it's a Country and Planning Act as well from 1947, which needs to be scrapped and redeveloped. And I think it was altered at one stage, so that too needs to be redone, because it is just causing too many issues with planning. And it's unfortunate, because I know, people don't like change. I get it. People think it looks nice as it is. Why do you want to change it? But that's not how society works. Like, there's not even a fucking infrastructure project. Like, you look at all the high-speed rail going across Europe, we've got nothing. There's no big infrastructure project.
Oh, there's HS2, which is going through like a blot in the landscape across some parts of the country. As to who it'll benefit, I don't know. So there's no joined-up thinking.
Well, there's that thing again, because I sort of go, Parliament needs to come out of London. It needs to go up north, because then you would get the infrastructure. London doesn't need anything else. It's a massive hub. Or to set up like an English Parliament and shunt it up north, and then you'll see infrastructure development go off the charts, because they'll go, we can't fly out of here. The trains aren't rapid. We need to get down to London. And in fairness, rapidly.
That's what Heseltine says, and I agree with some things that he says, but some stuff I don't. But I do on the regional power thing, and I think Gordon Brown has said the same thing. There is. And it comes back to Brexit again. What there should have been, what they could have done was said, sorry, the devolved nations don't want Boris Johnson's Brexit deal. But what did they? And it would have then fallen apart, and we would have been better off if that had happened. And they could have turned around and said, well, it's because of the United Kingdom. We have to respect each four nation. And they didn't. They turned around and go, we're doing it. Even though only 43% or whatever it is voted for Boris Johnson's manifesto, and it just shows how wrong everything is. It isn't. This country is not democratic.
I don't think it's forward thinking enough either. And I heard a crazy stat. I'd love to get your thoughts on this. I was listening to an expert on AI, an American. I'll put the clip up of who he was. I've forgotten the name, but he was saying, guess how many jobs in low-level entry positions, like low-level entry accounting, law firm positions, that sort of area of work, that sector. How many jobs have been lost to AI in the last 5 years as a result of AI coming in
the UK or US or everywhere?
US? It was US. I think it was the stat. Yeah, I know this happened over here because I've seen it in the news.
200,000? I don't know.
As a percentage, I only got a percentage. I didn't get the number of jobs.
I'll stay conservative with a small c and say 5%. You
think 5% have been lost, Liz?
I really don't know. I can't believe it's as high as 5%. I would probably say 2%.
17.
Really?
17.
Almost a fifth.
So so when I look at Farage and his policies, I go, just sounds, he might as well be in the Victorian era. He wants to go back to that Victorian era. That's what it seems to all be about, like colonialism, white supremacy.
I think it's pre that. Feudalism.
I think if you polled,
free market nonsense, but it's they call it it's classical.
If you polled the Reform Party members on whether they thought we should reinvade the colonies,
and they'd say yes.
I think they would say yeah. I think if you polled Reform, do you think, like, let's say Farage unexpectedly snuffs it in a plane crash or a taxi accident or something. Let's say Farage is out of the picture and they have to elect a new leader. and they've got it down to like the final four. If one of those was like, let's say like Richard Tice or Zia Youssef, should be Lee Anderson, and then the fourth one is like, should we dig up the bones of Margaret Thatcher and slump her in a fucking throne? Is that who you want for leader? I reckon a healthy percentage of them would go for Thatcher.
I agree.
That's the level of sort of like historical, like we want to go back to the glory days. We want to, it's
fantasy.
I can't think of an adjective that adequately captures how moronic, pathetic, historically inaccurate, and I don't know. I'm lost for words.
Pseudo populism is the only thing that sums them up. It is a sort of wanting to believe something which is toxic to yourself, and so a lot of Nigel's followers will be hurt and are being hurt by Brexit anyway, but they will be specifically hurt by what he's pulling through. And they don't seem to be able to join it up, as in, why are billionaire hedge funders backing reform when he's saying he wants to nationalize British Steel? And he just says what people want to hear, and then when he gets into power, God knows what he would do.
Well, I think it's more calculated than that. So he will say things so that it is then later on the record, so he can say, well, I did say that I was going to do this. So, for example, where we were talking about the triple lock earlier, that is on record. It's on camera. Nobody's reporting it, though. Like, all of his friends in the right-wing press will conveniently ignore that.
Yep.
And then later, when he does abandon a policy that hurts his pensioners, he can say credibly or near credibly, I did say that I was going to do that. It's just that nobody's informing. They're all too busy waving their flags and banging on about, fossil fuels and North Sea oil and make Britain great again. Nobody's actually listening to the substance.
It's his confidence and his thick skin and his ability to. I mean, they called Boris Johnson a greased piglet, but Nigel Farage is even more. I mean, he's literally Teflon coated completely. But perhaps the Russian stuff will bring him down eventually. We haven't had Nathan Gill's sentencing yet, and we don't know what else is under that. And I think if Nige then, I did wonder, because he seemed very down when he did his speech about facing economic reality. He almost seemed bored with himself, actually, in that speech. I thought, oh my goodness, is he getting ready to leave? And there's no one really that will be able to replace him. It is just the Nigel Farage show. There's nothing else in there.
Yeah, Richard Tice is just a fucking idiot. Like, he keeps going on TV and making some of the dumbest comments. I really he just put.
He's not likable. He isn't. I mean, I've met Nige several times, and I can't say, if you had to go to a dinner party and I had to be sat next to Nigel Farage, it wouldn't be the end of the world. He's easy to talk to. He's not unpleasant in terms of on that sort of one-to-one, apart from his views, but his views are unpleasant. But if you have to talk to him, it's not an uncomfortable reality. You can have banter with him. He takes it. He does absolve it. And like Richard Tice is definitely aggressive and defensive. That's why Nige gets away with it.
I feel I listened to that. I watched that clip of him versus Nella Rose. He was patronizing. Think, listen. No, you don't understand. And she's like, no, I disagree with you.
Had you have been in power a bit later?
What's so wrong about immigrants? Correct?
Don't you understand what I'm saying?
You want us gone. That's all I understood.
Stop it.
That's what you're trying to say, because we're
overcomplicating. You're not listening to a single word I'm saying.
I am listening to you.
No, you're not. You're not. You're dealing with this
I'm disagreeing with you.
And he was getting triggered. And he was literally saying to someone who was an immigrant, you've taken my GP position. And so I slightly go, is he really going to say that? If you disagree with him, is he going to have an issue because you're white? Versus if you were black, then he'd have more of an issue and he'd tell you to listen. And like when he had that patronizing, he was dealing with it. Was the Bloomberg reporter a lawyer? And he did the same thing. He had a.
I don't know if it's the same clip that I'm thinking of as you're referring to, but there was one where he's on a panel and someone, it was a woman said something to him, and he started referring to her as like "listen, love," or
something
like that.
I think she's a lawyer and she switched into journalism, or she got a degree and went into journalism.
Oh, you mean the Bloomberg? You mean Nigel with the Bloomberg? Yes, he said.
And I'm just
he
going.
patronised her.
But it was also like, I mean, imagine if I was in an interview with Nigel Farage and it's like, listen, boy, that's the same level
Listen,
of yeah.
He tried to pull her down. Yeah, it was actually
maybe he just likes you or he tolerates you more than the average.
Well, I think I'd challenge him. Yeah, and I think there is that sort of spark between you, and so there is this sort of like he's like, what's she going to throw at me? And I'm sort of like going, what can I throw at you? And gently, I'll sort of not that gently. I do sort of try and sort of put some sort of gotcha moments with him, but he hasn't asked me on for ages because I think when I went on Sky News last year and said that Nigel's a problem for farmers because he wants the American trade deal, he hasn't asked me back on since then. It's kind of like a busted flush moment. I have been asked back onto Jacob Rees-Mogg's show, but I refuse. That man is really, he gave me the worst nightmare of my life after I went on his show, and I can't ever go through that again.
He's a great example, though, again, so where you're talking about Farage, you're right in that he comes off as sort of personable and a bit of a josher. Is that the right word? Like he can take a joke, you can jab him. I've never met him, but that's the impression that I'm left with. I sometimes refer to this as like the beer test. So like if you look at political leaders and who could be successful as the leader of party X or party Y, or indeed in the run up to an election, who might win the election for their party. I always look at it like, who passes the beer test? Who would you rather go for a beer with?
Yeah.
If they were nothing to do with politics.
Yeah.
If it was just someone you got introduced to at work or through your friends, and it's yet to fail me. Like like back in the day, it was when this first sort of came to mind was Mitt Romney versus Obama. Obama wins that hands down.
Hands down, yeah.
Trump versus Hillary Clinton. Trump was like the Joker. I don't like Trump. I personally warm to Hillary Clinton more, but I can see that socially he was like a sort of piss taker. He was cracking jokes.
Yeah.
People found him fun and funny and not particularly politician-y. So to my mind, he passed the beer test. And now we've sort of bring it back up to where we are today. And I look at like if the next general election is like, basically Labour versus Reform, Keir Starmer comes off as sort of wooden, politician-y, clinical, flustered. Farage comes off as I've said, sort of, I don't like his views. I'm not a Farage fan. I'm sure.
You can see why it's relatable.
Yeah, regular viewers will have picked that up, I'm sure, of me. But just in terms of what people are drawn to and how much you may or may not like somebody superficially, he wins that test, I'm afraid.
But that's what's changed, hasn't it, with Zach Polanski rising up in the polls, because he's got personality and he's actually throwing a curveball in there. And that is what's causing a real problem in the Labour Party right now, because they're recognising that their voters are saying, nah, I'm going to vote Green, and it's scaring the pants off them. And that's a good thing. He's pulling the Overton window left, whilst we've had Labour under Starmer and McSwindle pulling it to the right, and Mahmood. Oh, I mean, the stuff that's come out of the Labour leadership has been horrendous as far as I'm concerned. So we'll see what happens with the tussle. But
Socrates complained about this several thousand years ago and basically said that, and I think we just haven't learned from history here. He was like, you get the sweet shop salesman and you get the doctor, and the doctor might have to pull your tooth out, but it's for your own benefit because you need to take the tooth out, and they'll be able to diagnose you to an extent. The sweet shop salesman is selling you the crap, but it actually tastes quite good.
Yeah, it gives you a sugar rush. Yeah,
gives you a sugar rush. And he was making that analysis. I've forgotten the name of the Greek leader they voted in, but he basically was the sweet shop salesman and said, right, instead of dealing with the Spartans on our front door, let's go and invade Sicily. It's like, what the fuck? And he made it sound like such an amazing campaign that he sent his troops over there and they got massacred. And then Athens had no army.
But you know what? It's worse than that.
Go on.
Sorry, you carry on.
I was just gonna, and that's where the critique comes from. That's all I was gonna say.
But it's like, so I was just gonna say, like, it's worse than that now, because I think with populism, people were drawn in to the sweetie shop salesman who would say, oh, if you do this or if you vote for me, everything's going to be sweet, everything's going to be lovely, you're going to love the taste of it, etc., etc. Now it feels like we've gone over a bell curve where even the people who got the stuff from the sweetie shop salesman and who are now running around laughing and smiling with rotten teeth, those people cling on to the ideology of the sweet shop salesman purely on the basis that it annoys the fans of the doctor and the dentist. It's like, yeah, I will keep like running towards the sweetie shop. So I will vote for Reform and Trump and whoever else, or Rupert Lowe, or like.
Oh my God,
like they will vote for them and support them and retweet them and do whatever else they can just to annoy the people who were sat on the sideline like with the doctor going like, oh my God, please, can you just make a sensible decision? It's like, look how angry you are. Look how angry you are that I'm voting against my own interests. It's insanity.
It's terrible that you say it's a sweet shop owner because I keep thinking of that evil character in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang who
the child snatcher.
The child snatcher who sets up a sweet shop. And we've got to talk about Epstein on that note because I mean, you're saying this and I'm just thinking, is this going to be the files got released this week? Is that going to be enough to get Trump out of power? Or is it just never going to be enough? And it's always going to be him making out it's a conspiracy?
Well, there's a headline in the Times today saying that the MAGA coalition is cracking.
In what way? Because of Epstein and because he won't release it, or because he's implicated in it?
Well, I think that's one big side of it, but also because of that, he's having to make decisions which are impacting his base, farmers. What being one of them, that he's doing things that people are now able to sort of not kid themselves, that it's hurting their businesses, and so they have to look at it and go, oh my goodness, actually this was a bad decision to vote for Trump. So I think that's beginning to blow apart, and I'm I don't watch American politics that much, but I think that Vance is obviously sitting there on the sidelines hoping that he's going to clean up from this. But I don't know. I hope that the Democrats get their shit together, because we do not need another run of Trump, because for us, it's close to our election as well, 2028, 2029, and but we need some form of sanity to come back.
I think the only way he's going to do it is to run as vice president. I think that'll be the loophole. I think that's the loophole he's going to go for.
If his popularity continues to be trashed, as happened with Boris Johnson, then there is no route back for him. If he's the only reason he ended up being back as president is because of his popularity, and same, you could say the same for Boris. And there's no way that Boris has tried to revive himself, and he's dead. There is no way that Boris Johnson is coming back, because whilst there's still some people that love him, the majority will not support him. He's a busted flush.
You say that, but Trump was awful, attempted a coup on the
but there's no Boris Johnson cult, is there? There's a few idiots in the journo-political sphere who run around with bring back Boris t-shirts on or whatever, but there's no nobody down your street is yearning for Boris Johnson to come back or defending him at every turn. Most people know what Boris Johnson is, and they kind of had enough of him.
It's just the Daily Mail readers like him.
Yeah, but to go back to the Trump stuff though for a second, I think the big threat for him, to my mind, and again, similar to yourself, Liz, I'm not super well versed on the machinations of American politics, but it seems to me like the biggest threat to him is governmental paralysis with this Epstein thing. The Republican Party are going to want to get certain policies through in an attempt to maintain popularity or build back from where Trump has sunken it. So there's going to be bills and there's going to be policies and big events, and they're not going to be able to do any of that or be taken seriously or get the airtime that they need from a PR perspective if every single time they announce something, they've got a CNN guy, an MSNBC guy, even a Fox News guy, and Tucker Carlson, the whole lot going what's going on with the Epstein files? Why have you redacted this? How many children did the president fuck? Let's talk more about Epstein. It's just so overwhelming and all encompassing
He obviously, in desperation to get re-elected, decided to run with the Epstein conspiracy theory because of populism, and now it's just come back and bitten him on the arse. It was a high-risk strategy, and you could say it's the same for Starmer, in that he decided to run with the Brexit situation that he did, hanging on to it, even knowing that it blew up, how many other prime ministers beforehand, but he clung to it because that's where the power was. And that's coming back and biting Starmer on the arse, and Trump is going to get killed by Epstein. That's what I see, and that's a good thing. We have to hope that happens, because Brexit and Trump are bad news.
Yeah. But to go to the, will it actually see him off, this Epstein stuff? I personally feel like unless there is an email buried in that tranche that they tried to flood the zone with yesterday at time of recording, that says clearly that Donald Trump did do something, and it's two people talking to, maybe it's like Ghislaine Maxwell talking back to Epstein or to a third party, where they definitely referenced that Donald Trump did have sex with a trafficked child, which I can't imagine they would do because they wouldn't want to leave a paper trail to incriminate themselves. But if there is some sort of smoking gun like that, I do think that it will take him down. And the thing that I'm clinging on to here is that I don't think he would have been this evasive and unwilling to release the tranche until now, if he were coming off squeaky clean in all of that.
It's funny you say that, because the email that came out, the emails that came out were a bit all over the place, and nothing, as you said, clear cut. But there was enough in there to go, he's been caught lying again. If you go through those emails, he said,
and he does like to grab them by the pussy as well. I mean, you think that.
This is what's ridiculous about the BBC thing. It's like he's like, you've tried to besmirch my good name, my character. It's like you've been dragged through the courts for literally being a rapist. I don't think it's possible to defame a rapist, Donny.
There are 3 clips. I mean, there's the court case, and I found another 2 clips of him having women come forward and say, Trump assaulted me.
Yeah.
One who claimed it happened when she was 13, and another when she was dating Epstein. And they just walked into the office, and Trump just put his hands all over her as if it was like no big deal. Yeah. And
from my perspective,
you offered a state visit. Well done, guys. You offered that a state visit.
From my perspective, as a woman, you have a safety radar when you meet a man, because men are generally the problem, and every single flag is up there with Donald Trump. I don't understand how any woman could support Donald Trump. If someone's admitted that they actually think that they should go up to women and grab them by the pussy, it is really giving you a clue that they are not a safe pair of hands.
Just a clue, just a little red flag.
I heard someone say, if someone did that in a dark alley, you'd fight them off.
Yeah.
But Donald Trump does it in public, and then people seem to not be able to compute that. And you're going, wow, that's such an interesting. So the scenario is that he's done something wrong. It's just that he did it in broad daylight. And you're going, that's what Jimmy Savile was doing.
Yeah.
That's what Gary Glitter was doing. That's what a lot of these people have been convicted. Bill Cosby, Rolf Harris. They were doing it right out in front of everyone, and they couldn't see that at the time. And you're going, yeah, if Trump had done that in a dark alley, you go, right, he needs to be arrested and beaten up in order to defend yourself. But that doesn't seem to compute with the public.
Well, it's sort of classism almost, isn't it? I mean, it's if a guy with brown skin on a boat comes in and claims asylum and then sits on a bus stop and tries it on with a 14-year-old, it is seen as dirty, rightly seen as dirty, predatory, unacceptable behavior for which he should expect to be arrested, charged, and jailed. However, when it is their political hero, then for some reason you get Laura Ingraham on Fox News saying well, we're not talking about 5-year-olds here. We're talking about, teenagers. It's absolutely bewildering when it is this person, when it's a poor person, when it's somebody who doesn't matter. Then it's disgusting. Then it's women and girls. Then it's riots outside the front of a hotel. When it's a political figure, somebody with power and influence and the media.
Done in the office.
eating out their hand. Yeah.
Done in the White House.
And it's like, oh, he's a bit of a character. He's a bit, oh yeah, after a couple of beers, he could get a bit handsy, but just steer clear of him. Like, it's forgiven. It's locker room talk.
They weren't protesting when he arrived, were they?
No.
I didn't see him like rioting outside Windsor Castle, demanding that he get kicked out of the country.
No.
Then, I've said the same with Russia. Russia drops chemical weapons, where there's Tommy Robinson and his crew outside the embassy trying to smash their way in and get rid of them. Never happened. They've never talked about it, never mentioned it. And yet, they dropped chemical weapons. No other terrorist group has ever done that. No one. And then they act as if it's like no big deal. We won't talk about that. I'd love for someone to actually ask them about that and go, why aren't you doing that? Like, Russia's literally killed Brits and you're okay with that.
Well, the obvious answer to that is because Russia is kind of like, it fits into this Christo-fascist kind of world, doesn't it?
Macho.
A lot of churches, very white, very traditionalist.
Nationalistic, Christian.
In the
new
hard
world, man thing.
Yeah. In the new world, in the 21st century in the West, the fight is no longer about the goody Westerners versus terrorists. It's about white Christian fascists versus brown people. So,
There was a funny little news article that came out this week that claimed that they'd done genetic testing on Hitler's blood.
Yes, I saw that, yeah.
And the claim was that he had a micro penis, which then makes you go, okay, that starts to explain a lot with Trump and Hitler.
Small hands.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Lovely to see you. Happy 150th episode.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you to
300
all supporters. Thank you for everyone who's come on the show. That's just incredible that we got this far.
Thank you for asking me.
Thank you.
Hail the lamp.
Hail the lamp.
Yeah, always a pleasure, Alex. Thank you. Thank you to all of Alex's viewers.
Thank you. See you soon.
Be sure to tune in next week for another exciting story from the files of Police Squad.
Here's your horror scenario.
Okay.
I'm going to throw it to both of you to see what your answers are. So I'm going to do something a little bit different.
Okay.
In this scenario, you've got to decide, do you give Donald Trump the Nobel Peace Prize or allow him to burn the Epstein files?
Oh, that's a thinker. Fuck you, Alex, a little bit. Fuck you.
I'm going to give him the Peace Prize because you can always take it off him after the Epstein files have burnt him.
Sort of permanent.
Can be rescinded.
Yeah.
Well, as we're saying with Andrew, who was a prince.
What if we said that the Epstein files were locked away and they wouldn't come out until after he died? Does that change anything with the Nobel Peace Prize?
Yes. Then he wouldn't get the Peace Prize because he doesn't deserve it.
Yeah, I feel like I'd rather know how messed up the world is and how compromised and blackmailed political leaders are than it would bother me that he got the Nobel. I mean, I've basically written it off. I think he will end up getting a Nobel Prize at some point, which will just sort of illustrate how ridiculous that whole thing is. But I think the Epstein files will... I think there's more figures involved in that and more corruption than the Nobel Prize. So, yeah.
More needs to be done on the messaging in terms, because we went through all of this with Jimmy Savile, didn't we? So all these rumours, and then people kept blowing them and saying, no, it's not true. And then eventually there came a point where there's a tipping point, isn't there? Where suddenly it's like, actually, these rumours were always true. And that is probably where we'll end up with Trump. And that's what happened with Mandelson. I mean, Mandelson, you know, it's just unthinkable that he thought he was going to ride the wave again and get away with it. And that Mandelson's gone and Trump is still, he was in the office with Mandelson. They go, oh, I like him. Yeah. And now Mandelson's gone, been blown up by Epstein, and Trump is still getting away with it.
Yeah, and got state visit while Mandelson got fired. You literally can't make it up. And Donald Trump had doodled a young girl. and send it to him.
We still have, and this is where it comes back to with Murdoch, we still have Murdoch dominating the press here. And this is the man who allowed a dead girl's phone to be hacked. And that is the problem in the world, I think, is that they keep getting away with it by hook or by crook.
Agreed. I'm not sure, even with the Epstein thing, it's going to nobble Trump, because I think he'll just deny it and say it's a Democratic conspiracy and he'll still have his base. I think it'll nobble him in Congress, though. I think that's Democrat now. I think he's left it too late to resolve this. Either he released it or he just didn't release anything, but Congress has got a lot of power and he can't stop that. And, as we've now seen, he couldn't shut down the Congress permanently. He tried.
And the elections next year, that's a tipping point as well, because there will be a change of power.
I know that some of the Senate seats are still in very strong Republican areas, but as everyone's now saying, it looks like MAGA's breaking up. So I think that might be the end of it. On that cheerful note, thank you.